Hi guys! I decided to bring an old favorite back. It's called It's Just a Game. It's a Markiplier slash Darkiplier fanfiction story. I am not the original creator of Darkiplier, that is Markiplier himself. I will leave a link to his channel in the comments below. So, one more thing. This was recorded some years ago, and I it's unedited. So it is what it is. So I hope you enjoy. It was a Friday, and I had just gotten home from work. I hung my jacket up and went over to the kitchen. I got myself a soda and went down to the basement, where my computer was. I turned it on and started playing some games. A few hours later, I got bored. I had been sitting at my computer with my headset on, and I had just quit playing Minecraft. I stretched, and then looked. I stretched, and then clicked the I stretched, and then clicked the Chrome icon. I went to YouTube and went to Markiplier's channel. I began watching the A Date with Markiplier videos. After a few tries, I got to the Dark Mark video. I let it play. As I watched, I started noticing something odd. Darkiplier was on the screen and talking. But then I heard a man scream. Darkiplier turned his head toward the noise. "Shut up!" he snapped in his deep but distorted voice, and walked off screen. What? I did not remember this being a part of these videos. Suddenly, Markiplier ran across the screen. My eyes went wide. "Mark?" I said in shock. I watched as Darkiplier ran across the screen after him. "Mark, he's coming!" I said into my headset. I heard some scuffling off screen. Then Markiplier came on screen. He came closer to me. He looks panicked. "You gotta help me. Darkiplier has me trapped here," he said frantically. I looked at him in confusion. "Can you hear me?" I spoke into my headset. "Yes, please hurry," he said. Mark screamed and ran off again. I heard Darkiplier laughing as he materialized on the screen in front of me, in a wavy effect. He was looking in the direction that Mark went. "You can't escape me, Mark. You'll be here with me forever," he said. "Let him go, Darkiplier!" I hollered into my mic. He was only a fictional character, right? I started feeling scared. Darkiplier turned his head and faced me with a twisted grin. "Come get him," he said, and reached out to me. In fear, I closed my eyes and held up my arms in an attempt to shield myself. When I opened my eyes, I looked at my surroundings. Everything looked digitized. I was in some kind of old, decrepit hallway. What the heck happened to me? "Hey, you!" I heard Mark's voice in a hushed voice from behind me. I turned to see him, or rather a digitized version of him, peeking out from behind a wall. "Mark, is that you?" I asked. "Yeah, get over here, and keep quiet. He'll hear you," he whispered and motioned for me to go over to him. I ducked and crept over to him, trying not to make noise. We hid behind the wall. Mark was sitting on the floor. I crouched beside him. He looked tired. "What the heck is going on? Are we in a game?" I started asking him. Mark shushed me. "Yes, we're in a game. Darkiplier made it, and he trapped me in here. I've been running from him ever since," he said. "How long have you been in here?" I asked. "I don't know, but this place is huge, and I haven't found the exit yet," he said. "How did you get into this game?" I asked. "I saw this horror game on Steam, and I downloaded it. Little did I know that Darkiplier was behind it." "Wait, so Darkiplier created this game? That's impossible! He's your fictional character," I said. "As I was developing him over the years, he kinda took on a life of his own, and he no longer obeys the laws of physics. I have no idea how that happened. It just did before I realized what was going on, and now we're stuck here," Mark said. "Why is he after you?" I asked. "He wants to take me over. He basically wants to be me, and gain all that I have. He's jealous of the life that I have," he said. "Do you have any idea how we can get rid of him?" I asked. "I don't know," he said, sounding defeated. "I'm tired of the constant running." "Mark, we can't give up. We can't surrender to him. You're not fighting alone anymore. We can get ourselves out of here. Now let's try to come up with an idea. While staying alive," I thought. After a moment of silence, I spoke up. Maybe we can smash the hard drive, I said. How are we going to do that from inside a game? We're pieces of data, not human, he explained. Sorry. Okay, so we're pieces of data. We've got to think computer. What if we trap him behind a firewall? I asked. He'd find a way to disable it. I've tried that, Mark said. Damn it. Okay, I said. Suddenly, Darkiplier rose up from the floor in front of us. Did you miss me? I missed you. Both of you, he said, looking at me and Mark. You can't keep us trapped here, I snapped. Oh, you're so cute when you're angry, Darkiplier mocked and lightly patted my head. Mark immediately stood up and got into his face as I stepped back. Leave her alone, you bastard, he growled. It's me you want. Let her go. Darkiplier took a few steps back, but he kept looking at Mark. You two are so much fun! I think you both should stay here in my amusement park, he said with a laugh and vanished. What a jerk, I said. You okay? Mark said in a calmer tone as he turned to me. Yeah, I said. Suddenly, at the far end of the hall, the floor started vanishing, and it was coming straight for us. Run! Go, 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 go! Mark said. We both ran away from the disappearing floor. We soon rounded a corner. There was a stairway leading up on our right. Stairs, go! Mark said. We ran up the stairs. We kept running down the hall. The vanishing floor crept closer as we ran. We rounded another corner. Mark quickly opened the nearest door and turned toward me. The floor vanished from underneath me. I screamed. I screamed as I started to fall into a black abyss. Mark's hand shot out and grabbed my wrist. Don't let me fall, I said wait, I can do that better. Don't let me fall, I said in a panic. I won't, Mark said as he pulled me up and into the room. He slammed the door shut behind me and locked it. I laid there as I caught my breath. My heart was racing. Thank you, I said in between breaths. You're welcome, he said. My breath soon calmed, and I sat up and looked at the door. That won't keep him out, I said. I know, Mark said. We're digital. He'll find us. If Darkiplier built this game, then he already knows where we are, I already said. We have digital bodies, not brains, Mark said, pointing to his head. I nodded in understanding. So these bodies are purely cosmetic, I said. Mark nodded. We can outsmart him then, I thought. By the way, I never did get your name, Mark said. I'm Becky, I said. It's nice to meet you, Becky, he said, and we shook hands. Suddenly, the whole room changed into a black abyss. Both Mark and I looked around at the blackness, although we could still see each other. What's he up to now? I said, feeling slightly annoyed. He's changing the environment. He could put us anywhere he wants. In the ocean? Mark shuddered. In space? Anywhere, he said. Would we feel the effects? I asked. Oh yeah, he said. Great, I said sarcastically. Well, the good thing about our situation is that Darkiplier doesn't want to kill us. He's just toying with us for his own amusement, Mark said. That's pretty pathetic, I said. Mark just nodded. Suddenly, it felt like gravity was pulling us both down. We were falling and quickly landed in cold water. I swam to the surface and breathed in the air. Mark? Mark! Mark! I screamed as I looked around the vast ocean. Did we get split up? The sun was shining on the horizon, and a damaged vessel was floating nearby on my left. I looked over to the right and saw another smaller vessel. What kind of game was this? I heard a gasp behind me. I turned to see Mark's head come up out of the water. He took in some breaths of air as we both treaded water. I looked down at myself. I was wearing scuba gear. What game are we in? I hollered over to Mark. He was wearing scuba gear too. Subnautica. I've played it before, Mark said. Swim to that escape pod. I swam over to it, and Mark opened the door. We climbed down into the cramped compartment. I hate the ocean. I hate the ocean. Why did he put us here of all places? Mark said to himself. Why do you hate the ocean? I asked. It's filled with who knows what that could kill us and eat us in one bite. Seriously, screw the ocean. Oh, and did I mention, we're not on Earth. This is an alien planet, he said. He sounded irritated. We heard a nearby explosion. What was that? I asked. That was that big ship blown up. We're stranded, Mark said. There was a moment of silence. I spoke up. Mark, Darkiplier said that we're here. Sorry. Mark, Darkiplier said that we're here for his entertainment. So what if we just sit here and don't play his game? Mark shook his head. Nope, if we did that, he'd only make things worse for us, and I don't want to think about what else he could do, Mark said. I sighed. So we have to play his game, I thought. Okay, I'm not familiar with this game, so what do we do first? I asked. Are you familiar with Minecraft? Mark asked. Oh yes, I love that game, I said with a smile. Okay, well, Subnautica is a little bit like that. It's a crafting survival game set in the ocean on an alien planet, and that's not blocky like Minecraft is, he said. Okay, I said, and nodded. We need to go out there and collect the scrap, quartz, and various fish and plant life. Then bring all that back here and craft stuff with it that will help us survive, Mark explained. Pretty straightforward, I said. Mark turned away from me for a moment and turned back. He gave me a small device. This is your PDA. It gives you a HUD of your inventory, gives you log messages, there's a gallery, an encyclopedia. It's basically your go-to device for information, he said, and pointed to a machine in the far wall. That's the fabricator. It's sort of like the equivalent of Minecraft's crafting table. The first thing we need to craft is a survival knife, which takes silicone rubber and titanium. I raised my eyebrows as Mark continued. Silicone rubber is made from 2 creep vines, seed clusters. You can usually find them in groups of 7 growing on creep vines in the nearby kelp forest. Don't worry about that right now. I can get that, he said. It sounded like Mark really had a lot of knowledge about this game. And the titanium? I asked. Titanium is either found in limestone or we can craft it from metal scraps. I'll let you collect some of that, and I'd recommend getting the metal scraps, he said. I nodded. Okay, and what sea life should we watch out for? I asked. I really wanted to make sure I knew what we were getting into. Well, first of all, that big ship out there, that's radioactive. Don't go near it. The next thing you want to watch out for is there are crevices down here where crash fish live. They're white and red, one-eyed fish that explode. If they spot you, they chase you and explode. Don't go near those, Mark said. I nodded, and he explained about the other dangers in the ocean. Then we set out. I collected the metal scraps and headed back to the escape pod. Mark wasn't back yet. I waited and listened for the hatch to open. Mark's going to die. A whisper spoke into my left ear. I knew who that was. Screw you, Darkiplier, I shot back. You can't save him from me, the voice said. Again, screw off, Darkiplier, I said in an angrier tone. Why are you even trying to help him? He's not worth the effort. Maybe not to you, but he's important not only to me, but to millions of other people. He brings us so much joy and entertainment. What have you brought us, Darkiplier? I asked. I heard a laugh. You'll see. The voice faded. Now I was worried. Come on, Mark, get back here, I said to myself and stared at the hatch. Long moments passed as I waited. When I finally heard the squeak of the hatch opening, I breathed a sigh of relief. Mark quickly climbed into the escape pod. Screw the ocean, he said as he laid on the floor to catch his breath. Are you okay? What happened? I asked. Freaking shark, he said. Darkiplier put a damn freaking shark in this game, he hollered. It's okay, Mark, you're safe in here. I was cut off at the sight of the world going black again. Mark and I were back in regular clothes. We looked around, and then I remembered I needed to tell him something important. Darkiplier was there with me while you were out in the sea, I said. What? What did he say? Mark asked. He was trying to convince me you were going to die and that you weren't worth all this effort. I told him to screw off and that you matter to millions of people, I said. Okay, thank you, Mark said. I nodded. You're welcome. Suddenly, Mark and I could feel ourselves falling again. We landed hard on a metal surface. We were both wearing spacesuits and helmets. What game are we in now? I asked, getting to my feet. I have no idea, Mark said. I looked around and I quickly noticed the familiar surroundings. We were on a platform, in space, with a large ship docked next to us. The platform had some smaller ships on it. Space engineers, I said. What? Mark said. We're in the game Space Engineers. I've played this one a few years ago, I said. Oh, Mark said happily. You've got to show me this game, he said in excitement. I'd really like to, Mark, but we have to figure out how to stop Darkiplier, remember? I said. Was this Darkiplier's way of distracting him? Okay, you're right, he said and paused. But this is so cool, he said, grinning. I just sighed with a smile. After a short pause, I spoke up. Okay, you are wearing a jetpack. Make sure you use your dampeners. Be careful, they don't last too long, I said. Mark immediately fired up his jetpack and started doing spins. Woo! This is so cool, he said, laughing. He stopped upside down. I raised my eyebrows. Having fun? Oh yeah, he said excitedly with a grin. I laughed. And I haven't even shown you the building aspect of it, I thought. I continued to show Mark how to play the game over a short period of time. Suddenly, on my HUD, I saw something red approaching. Mark, we got company, I said, pointing to the ship. It will take a little while to get here, so we should get prepared. Let's get into those smaller ships. I'll have to show you how to use those quickly, I said. We both hopped into two smaller ships. Mark's ship briefly fired at the large ship. Mark, be careful, I said. Sorry, he said. This is just so cool, I said with him. I know. I instructed him how to fly and use the ship's guns. After that, it was a waiting game. We both flew our ships toward the red icon. In the meantime, we talked about a possible plan to finally get rid of Darkiplier. So I've been trying to think of a way we might get rid of Darkiplier. I was thinking that since we're digital, we could manipulate the program and make a virus. We can infect him with it, I said. Okay, but how are we going to get out of this game and back into the real world then? Mark asked. That's where the big red ship comes in. We have to lure him there, infect him, and create two buttons. One to detonate the ship, the other to eject us out of this game, I said. Wait a sec. If we fail, we die, Mark said. I'm not exactly a fan of that. We won't fail, I said. We can do this, Mark, I said confidently. Okay, who's going to do what? Mark asked. I can make the buttons if you keep him busy. Then you can make the virus while I keep him busy. Okay, Mark said. Some minutes later, the enemy ship was clearly in view. We heard Darkiplier's voice over the speaker in both of our ships. Are you enjoying our little game, Marky Moo? He laughed wickedly. Then his ship began firing at us. Mark and I turned our ships around. Mark was flying upside down as we headed back to the red ship. Come get us, you bastard, I said to Darkiplier through the communication module. Oh, how fun! A game of cat and mouse? Come here, little mice. I won't hurt you. Darkiplier laughed. Both Mark and I heard him through our ship's speakers. Mark soon turned his ship back around so he was right side up. We both landed on the platform safely. Then we both ran inside the ship. Darkiplier fired at us as we ran. He missed us by inches. I quickly got to work manipulating the game to make two buttons. One to blow up the ship, the other to eject us out of the game. Mark got to work on the virus. Darkiplier came through the door, grinning. Why was I not invited to this party? He asked, as he raised his arm. He manipulated the air and He manipulated the space and pulled Mark away from the console and held him tightly. What you making? Darkiplier said as he bound Mark's hands behind his back. I had finished making the button as Darkiplier threw Mark to the side. He pointed to Mark while turning his attention to me. Stay! He commanded. I knew he was coming for me next. Behind you! Mark yelled. Darkiplier turned back to him. That's enough out of you, he said as he went up to Mark. He shoved his digital hand into Mark's digital throat. This gave me just enough time to discreetly grab the virus. I quickly turned back and watched in horror as Darkiplier silenced Mark. Mark tried to talk, but no sound came out. He just glared angrily at Darkiplier. I hovered my hand over the detonation button. Darkiplier, you make one more move, and I push this button, blowing the hell out of this ship, I threatened. Go ahead. It's not like we'll die, he said. Oh yeah? I said and threw the virus at him. It hit him and began to quickly infect him. I looked at Mark and nodded, giving him a "trust me" look. He nodded back. As Darkiplier reached out for me, I slammed my hand down on the detonation button. Then I quickly pressed the eject button right beside it. I felt like I was being yanked away. Both Mark and I tumbled onto my basement floor. I sat up and I felt like myself again. Mark sat up too. "Are you okay?" I asked. "Yeah," he said in his normal voice. I sighed in relief. Good. "I'm going to let the people at Steam know this game has a virus. I'll make sure it gets removed from Steam," Mark said. "That's a very good idea," I said with a nod and a smile. "Thanks for your help in all this," he said and held his arms open for a hug. "You're welcome," I said and gave him a friendly hug. "Now I have to get home," Mark said. "You're welcome to use my computer to order plane tickets," I said. "Thanks," he said. Mark flew back home to California. It was nearing midnight as he walked into his house. He felt exhausted. He decided to just take he decided to just take wow. He decided to just take a relaxing hot shower and go to bed. After he got out of the shower, Mark stood in front of the bathroom mirror and stared at himself. Suddenly, he started to feel strange. His eyes started to tingle. He closed his eyes and rubbed them, then peered into the mirror again. Mark watched as the whites of his eyes slowly faded to black, and his brown irises slowly faded to blood red. "Oh no," Mark said in horror and disbelief, as he quickly realized he was losing control of his own body. His mouth involuntarily turned into a sinister grin. Mark watched himself in the mirror as he spoke to his reflection in a deep, distorted voice. "Did you really think that I would ever let you go?" Thank you so much for listening, and thank you, Mark, for creating such an awesome character. Um, there will not be a part two because I feel that it's good the way it is. So I hope you enjoyed my story. Thank you so much for watching. Bye bye.